Welcome to Moments with Marianne. This is your host, Marianne Pastana, and I am so excited to be celebrating 10 years of meaningful conversations with you. As we step into our new primetime hour, it's such an honor to share this exciting new chapter with you. So whether you're starting your day out, headed to work, or listening from wherever you are, this hour is designed to bring you thoughtful dialogue, fresh insight, and inspiring stories so you can make every moment count. So thank you for being here with me today, and let's dive in. We're here today with special guest, Dr. Josh McConkey, who's here to share with us his new children's book, The Heart of a Leader. So can leadership, purpose, and mentorship help a generation overcome anxiety, uncertainty, and disconnection? Well, today's guest is here to share with us just that. Dr. Josh McConkey is a board-certified emergency room physician, U.S. Air Force Reserve officer, award-winning author, and leadership advocate dedicated to developing the next generation of leaders. As the author of The Heart of a Leader, he helps children discover the values of character, courage, service, and responsibility through engaging storytelling. A 4-time Telly Award winner and the founder of the Weight Behind the Spear Foundation, Dr. McConkey has spent his career leading in medicine, the military, and his community. So welcome to the show, Dr. Josh McConkey.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you having me on.
Well, Dr. Josh, it's such a great honor to have you here to talk about this children's book. What inspired you to write this?
As a military commander, I've served for 24 years. And what I was finding in our younger generation of service members, in addition to what I see as an emergency doctor, I just see this next generation has just lacked some basic leadership skills and the ability to overcome obstacles, the resiliency. They were just quitting at a moment's notice as soon as they encounter an obstacle. And as a military commander, there's a lot of work to do. There's a lot of push-ups and yelling. And, we were very successful, but I figured out that if we got involved earlier, 3, 4, 5 years old, that I think we were going to be much better off. And that's really what prompted the book. And it's a series, Be the Weight. And this first book is about leadership, The Heart of a Leader.
So why do you think children so misunderstand leadership?
Well, it's a combination of the digital age that we live in. So for a large portion of them, there were some very critical years in their development where, the world around them had changed and they were shut out of schools and their communities. And there was a lot of online learning that wasn't good for their mental health and it wasn't good for their just development as individuals. So they spent so much time behind computer screens and they've never known life without an iPhone. I mean, this is literally the iPhone generation, the second half of Gen Z from about 1997 onwards, born after about 1997. They've never known a world without an iPhone and instant access to information. And I've got 3 kids of my own. So I've got a 15-year-old now and twin 13-year-olds. And I mean, we try to be much better with the digital technology and really restrict access to phones. But a lot of kids, they'll sit right next to each other, and instead of having a conversation, they'll just text each other. That's their preferred form of communication. And human beings, we are social creatures, and for thousands of years, we've passed knowledge and culture through stories, like spending time with parents and grandparents and other mentors, coaches, teachers. That's the best resource that we have. And so, this book series is trying to get back to those simple things. I had an adult book, Be the Weight Behind the Spear, that really centered on those themes. And so we took that to the next level for the children's series.
So is leadership more about character than achievement?
Definitely. So in 24 years, I have seen fantastic leadership. I've seen some not so great leadership. And when you see those leaders that are just chasing stats, they're chasing awards, they sacrifice people to get, to their end game of promotions or becoming a general. And you very quickly learn who's in it for themselves and the achievement versus who's in it to actually make the team around them better. And for me personally, as a leader and as a military commander, I judge leadership by how well you bring up the people around you. Like how well you develop that team. Are they getting promoted? Are they moving on to professional skills? Have I given them those tools to be successful? I coached them up. I got so many of my members into PA school and medical school and just progressing in their careers. I take so much more pride in seeing the other people around me doing well. And that reflects well on me, and my leaders understand that. And that's what separates, great leadership from just, not great leadership.
Well, isn't that the truth? I think anyone that's been in an organization that has had like a quote leader, we know those that are just so exemplify what a leader should be versus people who just manage.
And, just the micromanagers is what has always driven me crazy in my career. So I was very fortunate when I was a professor at Duke University. We had a great leadership lecture from Coach K. So just the legendary basketball coach at Duke University. I thought he owed somebody a favor. He actually came into one of our residency recruiting seasons, and I thought it was just going to be an appearance, but he spent 2 hours, and it was the most amazing leadership lecture I have ever heard. He told all these stories of his 2008 Olympic team and how he brought all of these individuals together. So LeBron James, Kobe Bryant, Dwayne Wade, just legendary players that make $50 million a year. Like, how do you pull them together as a team? And he just drove home some big points where you talk about ownership, and then accountability, was very big. And he didn't like rules. So they didn't talk about rules on his teams. It was all about standards, like meeting the standards, higher standards, and then not micromanaging people. Because if you're having to micromanage, then as a leader, you made a bad decision yourself. You've got to own that. So you either have to spend more time mentoring that individual and coaching them up, or you got to make a difficult call and find somebody else to fill that role. So that lecture that he had given was so good. I used it when I took command, like portions of that story at Andrews Air Force Base. And then there's a chapter in my book dedicated to those fundamentals of leadership. It's so good.
So, why is it so important that we start teaching leadership lessons at such a young age?
People always ask if leadership is just some innate skill that you're born with or if it's developed. And I am a very big proponent of it being developed. So, sometimes you have some natural born leaders, but if you don't give them the tools and teach them the right way to use the skills that they do have, they're not going to be as successful. So the earlier that you get involved and you teach just true leadership and being part of a team and taking care of those people around you. So for this book, Heart of a Leader, it's not about the biggest and the fastest and the strongest. It's who cares about people, who takes the time to recognize the people around you, have that compassion, those soft communication skills like listening and nonverbal communications, and just putting that together and letting people know that you care. And those are the most successful leaders. So the earlier we get involved with that, the more practice that they're going to get, the better that they develop. Because if we wait until they're in the military at age 20, I'm telling you, it is very, very difficult and there's lots of yelling.
I think that there's just lots of yelling anyway, right?
Yeah. So, Full Metal Jacket was one of my favorite movies growing up, and Lee Ermey, that drill sergeant, was just fantastic. I know you said your father had served in Vietnam, and I'm curious if he had any, because he was a Marine. Did he have any comments on Lee Ermey and Full Metal
he
Jacket?
he said it was very similar. We'll put it that way.
That's fantastic.
I mean, how can children discover their own strengths, especially when they don't see themselves as a leader or even a natural leader?
So that's where the importance of parenting and that mentoring comes in. Right now, we used to have helicopter parents that would just kind of hover and, we talk about micromanaging, there's a lot of parents like that. Now we see lawnmower parents. And these lawnmower parents, they just mow down every obstacle in their children's path and they just want everything to be perfect and they won't let them make mistakes. And the problem with that is that children learn by making mistakes. Now, for parents and teachers, you're there to make sure they don't make the big dangerous mistakes. That's really important. But you have to let them make some mistakes because that's how they learn. And what I've seen as a military commander is by age 18, 19, 20, when they get to me in the military, you see the outcome of that lawnmower parenting. It's not good. They struggle to make decisions. They don't know what to do when they encounter an obstacle. They don't have resiliency. Like I just have a story of one of the nurses that was just so motivated and worked really hard to get into the military. And they had been there less than 6 months. And they walked into my office and said, I want to resign my commission. I want to quit. And I sat down and it blew me away. So I had to put on the compassionate listening hat because, the newer generation is a little bit softer and gentler than previous. And I just sat down and just asked him, well, why did you want to serve? Like, why did you put on the uniform? And when you get down to it is they weren't getting a bonus that they were told they were going to get, and they hadn't been promoted. And I just had to explain, like, listen, you have to go to the officer basic course first, and then you have to get mission qualified. And then there's just a step. It's not going to be handed to you. You have to work for this. And it was very shocking, but it was just a good lesson to me on just the generational gap that we clearly see now. And when you tell those stories of like, oh, back in my day, we used to, that doesn't work and they don't care. So you have to find a better way. And it's all about communicating and those more soft communication skills that do much better with this generation. And we have to teach them the basics of leadership.
When did you realize that you had to start implementing soft leadership skills?
So I joined the military in 2000. So this was before 9/11. Literally, some of the senior leadership and those old crusty enlisted sergeants were some like post-Vietnam era individuals. And I grew up watching Platoon, Full Metal Jacket, Apocalypse Now. That's why I wanted my military to be. Like I went to the basic training with the officer basic training. I love people yelling at me. I wanted to run everywhere. I enjoyed that. And probably as I became a lieutenant colonel and took on a lot more leadership roles, and certainly when I became a colonel and then took over command, clearly it's much different. So the incoming pool of service members, that's not what they were raised on. And that's not what they wanted the military to be. And if you yell at them, they're like a shrinking violet and they just cave. So they don't respond well to that. I mean, that's not all of them, certainly, but they just don't respond to that. And that's not what they've been raised with. And this is your iPhone, iPad generation. And we have to make differences. We have to make that jump as leaders because we still need them to be successful. So you can yell at them all day long. It's just not going to do anything. So it's about adapt and overcome.
So let's dive into your book, The Heart of the Leader. Can you share a little bit about the story without giving anything away?
So yes, this is just a story about a young boy, Gabe, who starts to take on a leadership role on his soccer team. And he's not the fastest, he's not the strongest, but he really cares about people and he understands people. And he does all those little things. When you do the right thing and that's you demonstrating some integrity, like even when nobody else is watching, he's trying to do the right things. I mean, he's even cleaning up the garbage on the field and just doing some things after practice that he thinks nobody's watching, but the coach is, looking back and just like, wow, and just reaches out to all the kids. There's a little boy with a disability. There's some different kids at school that just don't feel like they have that opportunity or not fitting in. And Gabe just reaches out and says, hey, why don't you come and play with us? So this is just teaching some of those basics of leadership, being inclusive, bringing everybody into the fold. And, there's a difference between being a leader and being like a leader of a team and just winning, right? So you can do both. But I think so much of the focus in the United States here, at least, is it's the win at all costs. that's always about winning. And that's not effective at the very young ages. It has to be about, bringing everyone into the fold, everyone's having fun, everyone being able to contribute to the team, and then winning comes later. So if we're talking about high school and college age, that's different. Winning is important. Certainly in the military, I'm not in the business of losing. If we're losing in the military, it's a very bad day for the country. So, but at these early ages, you have to teach these basics of leadership. It's so important.
So, how can parents help cultivate leadership qualities in their children by using your book, The Heart of a Leader?
So this series I'm very excited about. So the first book talks about just those basic leadership skills, not being the fastest and the strongest, but caring about people and just instilling those basics of leadership like early on. The next book is about perseverance. And I'm very excited with the second book because my wife, Elsa, has been very involved on that. And it's a story about her volleyball team. So the team was very young. None of them had played or been exposed much to volleyball. And they just got destroyed the entire season. But she kept the focus on individual goals, team goals, getting better each week. And the very last game of the season, they won their first match. And it was so exciting. And I know she was so emotional because they put so much into this team. It was the middle school team at her school. And I was like, that is a great story. And so that's the second book. It's just keep going. Don't give up. It's about perseverance. The next books in the series are going to be about accountability and integrity. And if you can find ways to bring some stories in, the end of each book has some notes for parents and for teachers on some exercises that you can do at your classroom or at home and emphasize some of the skills that we're talking about in the book. So it reinforces that. And it's been very well received so far.
Are these characteristics that you believe that children need to develop not only to be like effective in life, but effective in leadership, in their jobs, in any way they show up?
So 100%. So as a military leader charged with, I just finished my command tour at Andrews Air Force Base, and I had 100 men and women that were called upon to do some amazing things. They had deployed to the Middle East just before October of 2023. And then, things got crazy in the Middle East and they were there responding. And for me, just seeing the way that they excelled and the awards that they all received and the admirals and the generals that were writing back to me just saying, wow, your team is just doing fantastic. I was so proud of them. And building those types of leadership skills, they'll make great executive leaders, in business, in school, in coaching, and just in life. So those skills are so critically important. And I just can't emphasize enough, the earlier we get involved with that, the better.
Your work is making such an impact with children and their families, really teaching children life lessons that they may or may not otherwise learn. And the themes in the book are so impactful. Can you share with us your plans for the rest of the series?
So we had planned 8, and so we're finishing book number 2 right now, just waiting for some of the illustrations. And I definitely want to talk about Joe Yakovetic. So the illustrator on this book is a world-class Disney illustrator. He had done work on Little Mermaid and Lilo and Stitch. And if you just Google him and look up what he's done, the breadth of his career, like even getting started, he started on the Dick Van Dyke Show, doing some work and illustrations and just the breadth of work that he's had over decades. I was just so blessed to be able to bring him on the team. I really could not afford someone of his talent by by any stretch. And he had reached out and we just had some great conversations and he believed so much in this book series that he was proud to jump on board and we've done well. So that Joe Yakovetic, fantastic illustrations.
Oh, I definitely. This book has some great illustrations throughout it, which I think really point to the themes within the book.
Yeah, thank you.
So, what does purpose mean to you, and how can someone discover their own?
So for me, purpose was just something that when I served in Iraq and I saw some terrible things and saw a lot of death and destruction. And for me, I learned that it doesn't matter how much money you make, and it doesn't matter how big your house is and what kind of car you drive. That's not really what matters. For me, if you're not part of someone, you're getting behind someone or something that matters, whether it's an organization, coaching, teaching, being a mentor, for me as an emergency doctor, trying to save as many lives as I possibly can, as a military leader, trying to help this next generation be successful and watch our military grow long after I'm gone and retired. Those things are important. So, just that purpose, finding something that motivates you. Everyone enjoys something different. So, coach, teach, volunteer, just find something. Your community needs you so bad.
So, what has been the most meaningful lesson you've learned from a lifetime of serving others?
For me, just seeing it paid forward. So that be the weight behind the spear ethos. What was very touching is towards the end of my command tour, the squadron got together and they changed the squadron patch. So that's our unit, wears a patch, and it'd been there for boy, probably 15 years or more. And they actually designed a new patch, and that was the motto for the squadron along the bottom of the patch, be the weight behind the spear. And that was very touching. I just felt like that's a lasting impact that all of these individuals that I've got to mentor and teach and, hopefully teach as many leadership skills as possible. I've been in for 24 years. I can't serve forever, but the military and that squadron are in great hands, and they're going to go on to lead other individuals. And 15, 20 years from now, they're going to be the commanders. And you just feel like you're part of something that matters, and that legacy will live on. So I was very proud of that.
Can you tell us a little bit about the Weight Behind the Spear Foundation?
Yeah, thank you. So, writing the first book, Be the Weight Behind the Spear, that's my personal ethos. Just getting people engaged in their community, volunteer, coach, teach. That is the best resource we have. And shortly after that, we had Hurricane Helene in North Carolina, where I live. And it just destroyed Western North Carolina, just biblical level destruction, flooding, rains. And I wanted to do something more. And so we started the Weight Behind the Spear Foundation, and we're able to raise enough money to get involved with Samaritan's Purse, which is a great organization that does work all across the world, a lot of work here in North Carolina, and was able to meet with Edward Graham and get a tour of the facility. And our contributions, have helped rebuild Western North Carolina. There's lots of work left to do, but really that storm and just seeing the way that destroyed those communities is what prompted the foundation. So we're proud of that.
What would you like parents and children to take away from your book?
The biggest takeaway is what you do every single day matters. It matters to your friends, your family, the people around you, for the parents, your coworkers, your colleagues. Everybody has a set of gifts, and everybody's gifts are different. So getting out and coaching and volunteering and being that mentor is what this next generation needs so badly. It's not about TikTok videos and YouTube. It's about face-to-face interaction. That is what's going to save this generation and help them become better leaders. So even if you don't like working with people, there's still things for you. Go out to your local animal shelter, and those animals become emotional support animals for someone. So literally everyone has a set of gifts. Your community needs you. So please get involved.
Well, Dr. Josh, where can our listeners connect with you and be part of your community and learn more about your work?
You can go online, and the website is weightbehindthespear.com, WEIGHT, weightbehindthespear.com. Talks more about the foundation and the weight behind the spear. And for the children's book, it's lovelittleleaders.com. That's lovelittleleaders.com. It'll take you straight to the Amazon page, and you can kind of learn more about me as an author as well. But, hopefully it gets people engaged so they can get out in their communities. And they can always follow me on social media. Instagram, it's Josh McConkey, MD.
Well, Dr. Josh, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
It's been an honor. Thank you for helping me get this message out there.
Well, thank you, Dr. Josh McConkey. It's been such an honor to spend this time with you and to talk about your new children's book, The Heart of a Leader. Make sure to visit his website at waitbehindthespear.com for more information on his work, his children's book, The Heart of a Leader, and to be part of his community. Well, we're at the end of our time today. I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in. You're listening to Moments with Mary Ann, where we make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Mary Ann is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary, a recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Mary Ann will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmaryann.com for more information.